Hello, hello, ladies. Welcome back to my channel. If you are here, it's because you are on your own healing journey after abuse. And I want to say this up front. I see you, and I really respect that you're being proactive in learning how and what to do to help yourself in that healing journey. If you're new here, my name is Beany, and I'm a trauma-informed coach with a decade of life experience living with an abusive narcissist. And now I coach other women who are beginning their own healing journeys. Today, we're going to talk about the mistakes that we all make while healing. And let me tell you, there are a lot of them. And how do I know this? I know this because, yes, I made most of them at some point in my healing journey. This isn't something that we likely have been taught growing up, right? So today I want to talk about just 5 of the mistakes. And I think that the last one is probably one of the most important ones. So be sure to stick around for that. Please note that this video isn't about blaming you. It's about bringing awareness to the things that can keep you stuck and showing you a better way forward. Remember, healing is not linear. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be actively trying. So let's get into it. One of the biggest traps is getting caught in rumination. Now, don't get me wrong, educating yourself about narcissists and the cycle of abuse is important, and there are so many benefits to being informed, but there comes a point where you need to kind of shift your focus off of them and put it onto you. So obsessively thinking about what has happened to you, obsessively thinking about why it happened to you, obsessively thinking about what you could have or should have done differently so that it didn't happen to you. These are all ruminating thoughts. That obsessive need to figure out why they did what they did, why they lied, why they changed, why they hurt you. That needs to stop, and it needs to stop for a few reasons. First off, you're trying to make sense of the senseless. Yes, it is good to understand tactics of an abuser, but let me tell you, you will likely never be able to make sense of how someone could be so cruel. Secondly, you keep the abuser in the center of your thoughts, in the forefront of your mind. And really, you should be focusing on you, not them. And then the third reason is it gives you an illusion of control. We all want control, right? But let me tell you, you are handing over your control by giving them so much of your thoughts. It ends up being an emotional quicksand for you instead. So what should you do instead of allowing these ruminating thoughts to creep in? There's a few things. I said before, shift the focus from why did they do this to why do I need to answer for someone who never gave me the truth? You can practice maybe some thought interruption. When you recognize the ruminating thoughts creeping in, you can kind of gently say to yourself, this thought does not serve my healing. And then the third one is journaling. You'll hear me talk about that all the time. Journaling will help you to focus on what you do know. Yes, they lied. Yes, they gaslit. Yes, they hurt me. And that's enough. Okay, mistake number 2, self-blame. It's incredibly common to blame yourself. So often we have been trained to take responsibility for someone else's behavior, or the abuser convinced us that it was our fault, which is the gaslighting part, right? Or it's very possible that maybe you don't understand the power of a trauma bond. We have so much shame for not walking away sooner, and we don't understand that trauma affects our decision-making process. We stayed because we were surviving, not because we were weak. Maybe I provoked them. Maybe I should have left sooner. I should have seen the red flags. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe if I was stronger, smarter, quieter, more loving, maybe it wouldn't have all happened. Does any of that sound familiar? But listen, here's the truth. Self-blame is a survival mechanism. It gives you the illusion that you had control. Because if it was your fault, then maybe you could have fixed it, right? And if you could have fixed it, then maybe it wouldn't hurt so much. But the reality is that abuse is never your fault. Let me say that again. Abuse is never your fault. You didn't cause their manipulation. You didn't deserve the gaslighting. You didn't make them lie, cheat, or hurt you. They made those choices repeatedly and without remorse. And so, why does this thought process keep you stuck? Abuse is never your fault. We've established that. But when you keep yourself in that self-blame space, it really keeps you from fully grieving and letting go. And instead, you end up focusing on punishing yourself. It turns healing into self-punishment and keeps you kind of disconnected from yourself. So here are some things to do instead. Separate responsibility from accountability. You are not responsible for what they did to you. You are responsible for your healing, but you are not responsible for their choices. Taking responsibility for your recovery is not the same as taking responsibility or blame for the abuse. Being able to reframe your thought process. Instead of saying, I was stupid to stay, you can say, I stayed because I was trauma bonded or confused or afraid or isolated. I did the best I could with what I knew at the time. Instead of saying, I should have known better, you can say, I trusted someone who manipulated me. And that says something more about their character than it does mine. And then another way is to talk to yourself the way you'd talk to maybe a loved one who went through the same thing. Imagine your best friend or a sister came to you and said, I stayed in an abusive relationship. I feel like it's my fault. I would hope that your response would not be, yeah, you should have known better. You likely would say something more like, I'm sorry you went through that. You didn't deserve it. I'm proud of you for surviving. This is exactly what you need to say to yourself over and over again until it sinks in. Okay, let's talk about one of the most tempting and misunderstood parts of post-abuse recovery: jumping into a new relationship too soon. Now, I kind of have a lot to say on this topic because guess what? By all standards, I would say that I jumped into a new relationship pretty darn quick. And although it worked out really well for me, I would not necessarily recommend that you go out there seeking a new partner. And here's why. When you are fresh out of a relationship with a narcissist or an abusive, toxic partner, you likely are feeling empty, you're feeling unlovable, maybe confused about your own worth. And because of that, you're likely, and rightfully so, craving connection, love, and some validation. So it's tempting to jump into something new. And let's just say that you jump into something new and you have not fully healed. You have not done the work, and your partner is yet another toxic person. If that's the case, it's very possible that you either will not recognize the red flags, or maybe you'll even ignore the red flags. And this is you acting from wounds instead of wisdom. The trauma that you have experienced has wired your nervous system for survival, not healthy connection. And not only that, but it's also possible that you unconsciously attract or tolerate similar patterns because that's what's familiar to you. So then you're running the risk of repeating the cycle, right? If you have not severed the trauma bond, if you have not learned how to create and enforce boundaries, all of that's going to travel with you into the next relationship unless you do the work. So now here you are in the midst of another relationship and you've completely and totally bypassed the most important relationship, and that is one with yourself. Okay, so if you're not dating someone new, what can you do instead? This might sound silly, but try dating yourself. Take yourself out to eat. Maybe explore your interests. Fall in love with your own independence. Ask yourself things like, who am I without my trauma? What do I love? What do I need? You might be surprised that these questions might be harder to answer than you ever imagined, which is why it's so incredibly important to find those answers. Rediscovering who you are without their voice chirping in your head is groundbreaking for your healing. Let your healing be about becoming whole again, not becoming someone else's partner again. being able to study what healthy love looks like, learn about boundaries, what it feels like to feel emotionally safe, and to have mutual respect, and understanding the difference between intensity and intimacy, two completely different things. And then this is a big one, learning how to pay attention to what your body is telling you, not misinterpreting red flags for a carnival, right? Being able to self-soothe and validate your own emotions. If you feel anxious when they don't text you back right away, or you find yourself molding into what you think they want you to be, maybe if you're ignoring your gut just to keep the peace, or you're afraid to set boundaries because you don't want to scare them off, these are all signs for you to take a beat, pause. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are failing at healing, but it might mean that your past trauma needs a little bit more attention and you might not quite be ready for a new relationship. Okay, the next thing you can do is to work on building your own support system. A support system of platonic connections, which obviously is completely different and has a different dynamic than a romantic connection. And when you do begin to date again, make very conscious efforts to go slow. Make sure your picker isn't being driven by your old wounds. The truth is, you don't have to be fully healed to love again, but you do need to give yourself time enough so that you are self-aware. Remember, you're not looking for a bandage for your trauma, and oftentimes jumping into a new relationship is exactly what that is, a band-aid. A new healthy relationship is a bonus to what has already been healed. Okay, number 4, mistake when healing from an abusive relationship, right? Waiting for an apology. One of the most painful traps survivors fall into during the healing process is waiting for an apology that likely will never come. You keep hoping that they'll say, "I'm sorry, you were right, I did you wrong." And you're not wrong for wanting it. It's a completely normal human desire to want acknowledgement, validation, and just a little bit of accountability from the person that hurt you, right? But when you're dealing with a narcissist or an emotionally abusive person, the apology you deserve often will be the one that you will never receive. So I want to talk a little bit about why waiting for this "I'm sorry" is possibly just a way for you to unknowingly be sabotaging yourself. First off, you are giving your power away, right? When your healing depends on the abuser admitting fault, you essentially are putting your progress in their hands. You're allowing them to continue to have control over your emotions and your own timeline. Secondly, a narcissist is going to very rarely offer a sincere apology. On the occasion that you do receive one, please know that it likely will be conditional, manipulative, and designed to draw you back in again, a way for them to control the narrative. An apology from a narcissist is a tactic. The other thing that waiting for an apology will do is to keep your focus on them instead of you. Trust me, I know that you have questions like, don't they see what they've done? Or why can't they just admit it? And especially, how can they move on like nothing happened? I had all of those questions too. But the truth is, you don't need them to understand your pain for your healing to be valid. Some things that you can do instead: apologize to yourself for all the things that you did, said, felt while you were just trying to survive. You can shift your focus from closure to clarity. Closure doesn't come from their apology. It comes from you getting a real clear picture about what happened, why it wasn't okay, and what you're going to do to no longer tolerate things like that moving forward. Being able to use your energy to rebuild yourself instead of reopen old wounds. Invest in rebuilding your own life, your own peace, your own future, instead of reopening the wounds that they created and hoping that they're going to help close them. So the basis of you feeling the need to hear an apology is it's not about the actual words, I'm sorry. It's more about you wanting your pain to matter, right? And let me tell you, it does matter. Your pain does matter. You just don't need them to tell you so, right? And so let's talk about the last one, which I think is not only the most common mistake, but it's the one that I struggled with for literally years when attempting to escape the relationship. And that is leaving the door open for communication. Please remember, this is not a normal breakup. This is not someone who maturely decided that the relationship was no longer serving them and that both parties walked away, wishing each other well. This is a breakup with an abusive, narcissistic, manipulative person. It's not casually leaving the door open for communication in hopes that things will change and that they will magically no longer be abusive. And so, what does it look like to keep that door open? It could mean that you are continuing to respond to their text or their calls, or that you are not blocking them on social media or keeping them unblocked, just in case. Maybe you're checking their accounts or waiting to see if they reach out. And keeping the door open could even be a feeling. You are holding space in your heart for one more conversation, for you to get that closure that we talked about earlier. Or maybe even you're hoping for a possible reunion. I know this feeling, and it's a very innocent feeling, but the hard truth to it is that every door you leave open for them is another invitation for them to re-enter and re-injure you. But why is this one mistake so common and so incredibly difficult not to make? It might feel like it's because you feel weak, but I don't believe that's the case. I believe it's because you are trauma bonded, because you still crave their validation, because you don't want to be the one that seems cold or cruel or like the bad one. It's because you are still holding out hope that they can or even want to change. And because there is a part of us that really misses those good moments. These are all really normal emotional responses after abuse, but it doesn't mean that they're healthy responses. So let me break down why keeping the door, even cracked, the slightest bit is going to keep you stuck. First of all, it keeps you emotionally vulnerable. Even the simplest of, hey, just checking in from them can pull you right back into old patterns. Trust me when I tell you, a narcissist knows what they're doing. Remember, they've studied you. They know what makes you tick, what you will respond to, and what you will react to. And a seemingly harmless message is in fact meant as a hook to test the boundary, to see if they still have control over you. Keeping doors open delay your own healing. Every time you respond, check their profile, or hope for a message, you're reinforcing the emotional tie that needs to be broken for you to truly begin your healing. This mistake just keeps reopening old wounds. You can't detox from a poison if you keep sipping it, even in the smallest of doses, right? And so what do you do to slam that door closed for good? Well, no contact, or at least low contact, is one of your strongest moves. Block them on all platforms. And you may even need to unfollow friends. Having them pop up in the digital world just continues to reopen that wound over and over again. So keeping them alive in your thoughts and hopes keeps you stuck. So you need not just to have a digital detox of them, but an emotional detox of them as well. Replacing all things having to do with them with new things, new friendships, new coaching, new support groups, new hobbies, new things where you can find your own worth instead. I have so many clients who have a bleeding heart for whatever manipulative tactic might be thrown at them. Please listen to this. Slamming the door closed for good does not make you cruel or heartless. it makes you courageous and powerful. Okay, ladies, if you were able to resonate with any of these mistakes, I would love to hear from you. Trust me, you are not alone on any of them. You are not failing in your healing. You are gathering information, right? You're collecting data so that you can do better for your next experience. A couple really quick takeaways here. Keep your focus on yourself in the present, not on them. And to be really gentle and kind with yourself. You're doing the best you can. And as you know better, you will begin to do better. If this video has helped you in any way, please give me a thumbs up or drop a comment below and share what resonated with you most. And of course, don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss a video. As always, ladies, I'm rooting for you.